Welcome to the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show with Larry Lawson. As a former career law enforcement officer and law enforcement educator, Larry focuses on the use of tried and true law enforcement investigative techniques in conducting paranormal investigations. Despite his experience and training, Larry also keeps an open mind to discussions on topics that deal with evidence that are not quite as physical in nature. Paranormal Stakeout guests are professionals in the field of the paranormal and parapsychology, conducting the investigations and research needed to further the cause of paranormal study. Larry advocates an agenda of standardization of structure and training in the field of paranormal investigation and research for the purpose of one day being able to produce the evidence needed to convince a jury of the existence of the paranormal. Whether it is ghosts, UFOs, unsolved mysteries, hauntings or cryptids, no topic is beyond the investigative reach of Larry Lawson and the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show team. Now, here is the host of the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show, Larry Lawson.
Hey folks, it's Larry Lawson and you're back with Paranormal Stakeout. I'm coming to you from beautiful Vero Beach, Florida, where we're finally getting some rain down here. And if you've been watching the news, you're probably going to see that we're getting pretty well flooded down this neck of the woods. But I'd like to thank all of you for joining us here again tonight. It's good to be with you. We got a great show tonight, a terrific guest, fellow professional, brother in blue, as they say. But before we get going, a little bit of house cleaning here. I'd like you to take a look at our website and take a look at our team. You can get to see what we're about at paranormalfbi.com. That's where the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation puts up a lot of our evidence and the things that we do out there, as well as IndianRiverHauntings.com, which is our affiliate group that does tours and whatnot. So check us out at either IndianRiverHauntings.com or Paranormal FBI.com. Also want to make note that we're on Facebook as well as YouTube, and you can catch some of our investigations on YouTube at Indian River Haunting. So check us out if you would. But another thing I want to bring up is something we're doing on the show, and we're trying to engage you folks out there, trying to hear your questions, get your thoughts. So if you get an opportunity, send in your questions about the paranormal, and it doesn't have to be about ghosts. We explore everything from ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, the whole bit of paranormal fare. And you can get to us at ghostguy@paranormalstakeout.org. Send in your questions on the form that comes up there, and we'll bring them up right here on the show. Read your question and give you the best answer we can. And if I don't have the answer, I'll get it for you somewhere. I'll get it for you from the people that do know. Anyway, as I bumble through that, tonight's show, I got a great guest. ELLIOTT Van Dusen, retired Royal Canadian Mounted Police, a brother officer, 15 years, retired as a corporal. He's currently the corporate director for Paranormal Phenomena Research and Investigation. He's also the executive vice president of Ghost Project Canada. He spent 15 years on the job up there, and he investigated everything from homicide, crimes against person, crimes against children, which is a lot of the work that I did also. So we have a lot in common in that respect. But he's also the author of several books that we'll get into a little bit later. And with that, please welcome ELLIOTT Van Dusen to the show. ELLIOTT.
Thanks for having me, Larry. I look forward to the show.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, you've got such a varied career, and you're well educated. You're working on your master's degree right now, I understand.
Yes, counseling psychology.
And you have a Bachelor of Arts in Criminology. You've got a diploma in parapsychology from Stratford Institute, and also from American International. And you did some more work on parapsychological studies at Nova Scotia Community College. So you've been a busy man. You know, when I first met you, I thought I was going to be talking to a gentleman that was older looking than me. And it's amazing. You're a young guy, and you've accomplished so much. Tell my audience a little bit about ELLIOTT Van Dusen, your background, and where you're at today.
Sure. So how I got into the paranormal, I always had this interest in law enforcement. I come from a family of law enforcement officers. I've got aunts and uncles and cousins with Ottawa Police Service, and I had another uncle with the Toronto Police Service. So television shows like Unsolved Mysteries really caught my attention because I not only wanted to be a police officer, I also wanted to be a homicide detective. So Unsolved Mysteries was perfect because it had all the cold cases and really interesting crimes. But every once in a while, they throw in a ghost story or a UFO story, and that also caught my interest as well. And then fast forward to 1997, the TV show X Files had come out in 1993, but I hadn't come across it until 1997. And I thought it was really interesting that you had two law enforcement officers investigating the paranormal. So I started basically my own organization, which is now Paranormal Phenomena Research and Investigation. And we started to look into, local folklore and haunted businesses and locations. And then when I moved to Halifax around the 2000s, I met my colleague and mentor, Daryl Walsh. He was teaching parapsychology at the Nova Scotia Community College. And that's what kind of started my formal education in parapsychology. I took those courses and then got invited to join his Center for Parapsychological Studies in Canada, where I got some field investigation experience in haunted houses and working under some people that had more experience than me. All while I'm doing this, I'm working full time. I'm going to St. Mary's University, earning my Bachelor of Arts Criminology degree. And then in 2004, I got recruited by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and had to go to their training center in Regina for 6 months, which is the other side of the country for me. And it was my first time on an airplane. So once I did that, I still followed parapsychology privately. I like to call it from the corner of my desk, but I wasn't as active as I was in my younger years. And then towards the end of my career, maybe 2 years before I knew I was probably going to retire, I started coming out and doing podcasts again and becoming more public and out in the open. And now that's pretty much all I do full time now.
So you've been actively investigating since 97?
Since 1997, yeah.
Okay. And I'm kind of curious, this executive vice president of Ghost Project Canada, what's that organization?
Yeah, so Daryl Walsh, him and I are still friends today. We have our own podcast called the Dueling Parapsychologist Podcast. He's part of PPRI, and he made me vice president of Ghost Project Canada, which he has kind of based this off of Helen Creighton. So Helen Creighton was a folklorist in Nova Scotia, and she was kind of like your first paranormal investigator in Nova Scotia. She went around to all the elderly people in the province and collected all the folklore stories and ghost stories that they had, and she documented it in a couple of books. And so Daryl had this idea that he wants to do the same thing right now, because there's nobody really out there doing that, collecting all the stories from people that are in your old folks home or your retirement home, all the people that have the knowledge and the folklore, that essentially will eventually, pass on and die off. So he wants to document all those and then do a statistical analysis on it. So we just created a virtual map. It's still got some bugs in it. My co-founder of PPRI, Spencer Collier, he is CEO of a technology company, so he's working on fixing that up for us a little bit. But eventually, we'll have this public map that's available to anybody. You can, if you're interested in, say, Massachusetts or Nova Scotia, you can click that on the map, and then you'll see all the haunted data that's been put in there. And we're trying to put down very important things like what the weather was that time, how long the duration of the sighting was, things like that, to help identify any hot spots or trends.
That's interesting, because that's one of the things that I am very interested in creating, is that type of a database, not just only for the events themselves, but are there any correlation between events and the weather, solar flares, moon phase, things like that. So that's very fascinating. But one thing that caught my ear just then, if you will, you're not just talking about ghosts when you talk about paranormal, are you?
No. So it's funny, when I created my organization, Daryl's organization mostly dealt with hauntings and ghosts. I was interested in everything and still am interested in everything. So paranormal phenomena research investigation started by taking the overflow from CPSC, so any UFO sightings or anything like that. But I find, and I'm not sure if other people have had that experience, but I've had this experience. But when you have a paranormal organization, the types of emails that you get and requests from the public that you get, it seems to be a lot of it situated around mostly hauntings and ghosts. So
Mhm.
I initially started out as UFOs as my primary interest, but I've kind of become, a bit of a subject matter expert in ghosts and hauntings because that's pretty much what I've been doing for the last 24 years. It seems to be mostly what people are reporting, but we do investigate UFO sightings or cryptid sightings. We've had a black panther or a black cat reported in Nova Scotia that we've looked into. People have
Mhm.
brought us photographs of footprints and paw prints and things like that. So yeah, it's really neat. In fact, a couple of years ago, they didn't think there was any bobcats in Nova Scotia. Even the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife used to say, "Oh, there's no bobcats here." But since then, we've proven that there are bobcats in Nova Scotia. People have caught them on their trail cams and things like that now. So you just never know what's lurking out there.
And I think that's a great part of what you're doing. Too many people hear paranormal, they think strictly ghosts, but paranormal is anything outside the normal science that can't be explained. And that includes cryptids and everything else. Now, you catching the bobcats and being able to document them, it may not be paranormal, but your work obviously has helped the community. So that's uh, really, really interesting. Um, we just got a couple minutes here before our first break, but did you have an experience that actually started you in the field? Did you, or was it just
I
that plain interest? Did you ever have
I
anything that happened?
didn't. Yeah, no, I didn't. A lot of people have talked about some sort of experience that has propelled them towards investigating the paranormal. For me, I was already investigating it before I came into the first thing that it's a haunted house. I mean, one of my investigators saw an apparition. So as you can tell, I'm a critical investigator, probably because of the law enforcement background. I always try and rule out anything supernatural.
Hmm.
For normal natural occurrences first. But that was my first experience, and that was probably back in 1998. So about a year into investigating.
Did you ever experience anything on the job?
Not while I was working, no. And I worked at some crazy spots, like Penticton, British Columbia was my first posting. That's home of Lake Okanagan, which is home of Ogopogo, the lake monster. So on
Hmm.
night shifts and things like that, I would try and patrol the areas where people had reported seeing, the lake monster. And we had police boats at the detachment, and any chance I got to get on the lake, I'd get on the lake. But no, I never experienced anything while I was working.
Have you talked with any of your colleagues that have had experiences? Have they shared it with you? I know, like when I came on the job, nobody, if it happened, you kind of kept it quiet, but that's changed a lot in the last 15 years or so.
It's so funny. So when I was working, like you said, you didn't talk about it. I actually got raked through the coals once people found out what I did before I joined the
Exactly.
RCMP. I was
Yeah.
literally like Fox Mulder, like the black sheep
Yeah.
of the
Well,
RCMP. But
well, I'm going to put you on hold for just a second. I just realized the time here. We got to take our first break. So, folks, I'm here with Elliott Van Dusen, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Stay tuned. We got a lot of great things to talk about. We'll be back right after these messages.
From the Canada-US border in the southern region of Niagara, traveling north in Ontario's Golden Horseshoe, then east and west of the Greater Toronto Area, there is growing awareness and excitement as more and more people are starting their day with Beautiful Mind coffee, the delicious healthy coffee that your brain will love. Made with ethically sourced 100% Arabica coffee, Beautiful Mind coffee is roasted and ground in small batches to ensure each bag contains a wonderful full-bodied artisan coffee. Scientifically formulated, Beautiful Mind coffee is the only coffee blend that contains 3 herbal ingredients found to aid in boosting your daily mental clarity and focus. Maca root powder, green tea extract and American ginseng have been selected for their ability to support good brain health. Taking care of your brain's health now can help delay or prevent the onset of cognitive dysfunction, including dementia, Alzheimer's, and more general memory loss as you get older, just by enjoying the delicious flavor of our roasted coffee and herbal ingredients found exclusively in Beautiful Mind Coffee. Beautiful Mind Coffee is now available at Amazon.ca and soon to be available in selected locations near you. In Hamilton, Ontario, Beautiful Mind Coffee is now available at Livelong Wellness Clinic, located at 189 Hewson Street South. Beautiful Mind Coffee can be ordered by telephone by calling 416-436-3675 or 905-536-2450. Why have a good cup of coffee when you can have a great cup of Beautiful Mind Coffee that's good for your brain? For more information on Beautiful Mind Coffee, visit us online at www.beautifulmindcoffee.ca.
And we are back, folks, at Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, Elliott Van Dusen, retired RCMP. And I got to tell you, the RCMP is just one of the most most important, one of the most famous law enforcement agencies in the world. So my compliments to you, sir, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
So, getting back to the investigations end of it, you've done quite a bit, obviously, since 1997. What was the most complicated case that you've had to this point?
I'd say, well, I mean, one of the complicated cases that we had was we had a lady reach out to us. It was complicated for a few things. One, she was in Ontario, and that's kind of outside our area. So we investigate in the Atlantic Canadian provinces, which is New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland. And then we do the New England area of the United States, so Vermont, Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. And it was during the pandemic. Things were quiet. This lady seemed like she needed help. She was a banker with a prominent banking company. She was having trouble sleeping. She claimed that she had been attacked by something before, which has caused her some sleeping anxiety. And then during the pandemic, she was being attacked again, or something was disturbing her at nighttime. So we're trying to figure out, how are we going to help this lady? How are we going to investigate this? We actually got pretty creative. So I have a Zoom subscription with PPRI for meetings and things like that. So what we decided to do is, she had an iPad, and we told her to start turning the iPad on and recording her sleeping during the night, and then the following morning turn it off, and we'll review all the tape. So that's what she started doing. She started, when she was ready for bed, she'd press the record button. It would record all night. It would upload it to the cloud. Next morning, I'd get up, download the video, watch it. And it was so funny when we were doing that kind of experiment. She would always wake up saying that she slept great. She's like, I didn't hear any like whispering in my ear. I didn't feel that cold breath on my neck. Like nothing was tugging at my sheets. Like I slept great. Mm-hmm. And we did that for about a week, and then everything was good. So we just said, okay, well, we'll just pause things and, go back to your normal routine and call us if something else happens again. She reached out again about a week or two later, saying that she was being disturbed again. So we went back, did the same thing, recorded some more sessions. And after that, again, there was nothing on the tapes or anything like that. She was sleeping really good. It just kind of went away. So reached out to some of my colleagues in psychology and things like that. And I mean, the best they could come up with was, maybe she felt safe, at peace, that she's got somebody kind of watching over her during the nighttime, because she had reached out to our organization, and we were helping her as best we can. But to this day, she said everything's been good. She was actually like getting seriously worried for her job. because she was having to call in sick from not sleeping all night and things like that. And
Mm.
it was definitely one of the more complicated cases that we dealt with, just because of the whole logistics thing.
Oh yeah, that's got to be an issue. But let me ask you this question: when you get cases from residentials, as we call them, what do you do to vet your client, your complainant, if you will? What do you do anything to vet them? Do you meet with them beforehand, an interview, or?
Yeah, so for the most part, I find most cases start out through an email,
Mhm.
and then I usually write back and tell them that I would like to speak to them on the telephone or on video as well. I do believe audio video, and this comes from my policing background, is the best evidence. But
Absolutely.
when video is not available for whatever reason, then obviously audio is the next best evidence. And the reason the video, as you would know as a former law enforcement officer, is you can see the nonverbal behavior,
Mhm.
which could be important. So then we do a formal interview. We have a questionnaire that we go through depending on what the case is. If it's about UFOs or ghosts, there's certain questions that we ask. Do they have a particular religious background? Because Christians, if it's something malevolent, may kind of steer towards a demonology type belief, whereas somebody of like an Arabic descent would start talking about jinns, which are
Mhm.
basically the equivalent of a demon in the Quran. So, we have to screen all that. And then, of course, screen for any sort of mental health issues,
Okay.
medication as well. Certain medications have been known to, cause people to hallucinate and see things.
Absolutely.
So we go through all that with them. And if then after that, once we feel, that the person's being sincere and that it seems, to be legitimate, whether or not
Mm.
it's paranormal or not, then we take the case on and we start digging in.
Okay. And in this particular case here, I'm assuming that the client didn't exhibit anything that caught your eye.
Nope, no, she had a clean bill of health, medications. I think there was very little to none.
Mhm.
Yeah, very good job, very well educated, and yeah, it was an interesting case. Unfortunately nothing. We weren't able to prove anything with that one, but it certainly gave the client a peace of mind.
Well, that's good, and of course, the one thing, and this is one thing that's always worries me. We do an investigation, we help somebody, or we try to help somebody that might have other mental health or maybe addiction issues, and suddenly we come in and it's all good, and yeah, it makes you kind of wonder. Did you help them? Did you help them because now you made them feel better, or was it there to begin with? And I think that's something we got to be really careful about too. I get worried about trying to help some folks and coming in telling them we're going to solve the problem, and then we say, okay, this is what we found. They feel good, and then 3 weeks later they have problems again, and their mental health deteriorates. So that's
Yeah,
always something that concerns me
yeah.
in investigations. So. Um, have you had a case yet that's really unnerved you? I won't say scared because
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think.
for sure. It would be the Exeter case that I investigated in
Uh,
Rhode Island. So I had written my first book called Evil in Exeter.
mhm,
So what happened with this case is I was on Instagram one day and I came across this picture of a girl that looked like Gillian Anderson. And so I had commented on the picture. I said, "Wow, you look like Gillian Anderson in this photo." And then I got a private message from her, and she said, "Oh, actually, I was in like a top 10 lookalike contest for Gillian Anderson, and I won." And she sent me like the article or the news or the magazine kind of clipping. So I thought
mhm,
that was cool. So we got talking and explained to her that I was interested in the paranormal and all that stuff, and she was as well. And then she told me that she's been surrounded by spirits her whole life. That when she grew up in Cranston, Rhode Island, they had spirits in their home that she and her parents had witnessed, and her grandmother, and they were on the television show Ghost Hunters back in the day with the Atlantic Paranormal Society.
okay.
So I found the episode and watched it, and it was the exact same story that she had told me. So I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting." And then I was single at the time, so I flew down to Rhode Island. I said, "I want to come down and meet you. You seem like a really interesting person, and maybe you can show me around some of the haunted sites. So it was really cool. We checked out the Conjuring House in Rhode Island. Got to see the Snedeker House in Connecticut, where what's that horror movie called now? The Haunting in Connecticut movie.
Oh, okay.
Then we checked out the Devil's Footprints in North Kingston, Rhode Island. So it was really cool. Had a great time. And then wanted to come see her again. So the second time when I was coming down, she offered me to stay at her house, but it came with a warning. And she said that every time she has like a male friend over at the house, the haunting activity in the house seems to kind of pick up. And I didn't think anything too much of it, at that time. Like, I was almost expecting it to be like most paranormal investigations. You go to the house and nothing happens. Well, sure enough, I went to the house, and I started to witness a lot of the phenomena myself. Doors opening and closing on their own, locks locking and unlocking on their own. Her children were complaining that there was scratching coming from the wall. So, being a police officer, I went outside and checked to make sure, that there weren't any tree branches rubbing against the house, which there wasn't. Any squirrels or anything like that, or anything to cause that noise, and there was nothing. Fire alarms started going off on their own and would only turn off if they were splashed with holy water. Strange like knocks. You could hear knocks and sounds that wasn't a house settling sound. I mean, I've lived in a brand new build, and I've lived in a 100-year-old home now, so I've got some experience with normal, house noises. We have the rads here, the radiators here, so when they turn on, they rattle and stuff like that. But this wasn't that. And as the more I would come down, I try and come down once a month, usually for a week or two. I started bringing my equipment down and taking notes and documenting everything, and it just kept kind of getting progressively worse, to the point where we tried to call the family's priest, because he used to do deliverance work, which is the Catholic term for, exorcism type work, or demonic type work. Unfortunately, he had been transferred to a different unit. He was doing like hospice care, and he said he himself wasn't feeling like as strong as he used to be, so he didn't feel that he was probably the best person to tackle this entity. So we ended up calling in a medium that we knew down there that we trusted, and this is back in November of I believe 2018, and she did all like her clearing of the house and used some sage and things like that. And there's a couple photographs in the book, but I had a thermal camera that I just bought from Fleur, and used to use those in law enforcement to detect grow-ops and find bodies in woods and things like that. So, it's great tool to have for ghost hunting. You can actually see handprints and things like that on the wall. If you touch the wall and put the camera up, you'll see the handprints because they're picking up the heat. And as we're in the bedroom and the medium's doing her seance and trying to get rid of the entity, all of a sudden you can see these dark, distorted footprints appear across the bed cover. And it walked around the pie plate that she had of her sage burning. So in the photograph, you can see a hot spot in the bed, which is the pie plate smoking.
Right.
And then you see these dark, distorted footprints walk towards the pie plate, walk around it, and go towards the medium. And the medium didn't know any of this was happening. And we looked over to her, up at her, and she said, "I feel like the entity is over by me." And I'm looking down at the camera, and I'm like, "Yeah, no kidding. Like, something has come over towards you." And then she cleared, said that she felt like the spirit had been cleared, and that was it.
Well, I hate to do this. I want to finish up the story, but we got to go to our next break. Folks, we're going to finish this story with Elliott Van Dusen, my guest tonight, in just a couple minutes after these commercial breaks. Stay with us. We got a lot more to talk about.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
And we are back with my guest tonight, Elliott Van Dusen. Elliott, I feel like I kind of cut you short.
Yeah,
on that story.
not much more happened after that. It was funny. I do remember her saying the Michael the Archangel prayer, and then after that, she felt like the entity had left. The distorted footprints on the bed dissipated, and we didn't feel a cold spot. I forgot to mention we had physically felt a cold spot. The hair on our arm was standing up, but the FLIR actually didn't pick anything up, which is not unusual. A lot of people report the experience of feeling a cold spot or a hot spot, and equipment doesn't necessarily pick it up, but it's the perception of it. So, yeah, and then that was in November of 2018, and the family hasn't had any other issues at the house since. It was a fairly new home. It was maybe within 10 years old. Good area. There was no issues with the area. It did back onto the next area over was a Veterans Memorial Cemetery, which is interesting. And that also housed the bodies from what's known as the Lad School, which was a mental institution in Rhode Island back in the day where people would drop off. People with mental and physical disabilities that they didn't want them anymore, and they started dumping criminals off there. And a lot of times if you died there, they just kind of threw your body in an unmarked grave. And a lot of those institutions back then didn't really have the best treatment for people. So that might have been a factor, but yeah, it was definitely the most interesting case. I tried to disprove as much as I could, but it's hard when you got
it on film.
Yeah, I got some photos, and I got the video of the fire alarms going off. There was one time I was in the room just doing house blessing prayers, and I actually saw the doorknob. I could hear the doorknob turning, and when I looked, I could see it turning, and thinking it was only me and the homeowner home, so thinking it was her, I opened the door up, and when I looked out, there was absolutely nobody there. And it's like a newer doorknob. It's not like just would randomly spin, you know what I mean? Like you would test the mechanisms and all that stuff. We even took the smoke detectors down, checked them for the expiry dates. We called Kitty, the brand. They had no explanation for it, so they sent the homeowner some free new ones. Tried to do what you could to rule out any sort of rational explanations for it. But
and that's got to be the basis of everything we do, is looking for a rational explanation first. But I think the story that you just told really brings home an important message. So many people, well, my house can't be haunted. I just built it. I'm the only one that lived in it, and nobody's ever died here. And folks forget most of the time it's not the structure, it's the land.
Yeah. And could be attached to the land, could be something with the structure, or it could be the person as well. Could be an item, in the house as well. Yeah, a lot of people bought old antiques and then all of a sudden have mysterious attachments things start happening.
I'm just a big believer that so much of this is attached to the land, but that's just my take on it. This is a book, you said, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and it came out when?
That one came out in 2019. That was called Evil in Exeter.
Mhm.
It's available online through Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and then my next one, which kind of goes to a question you had asked me earlier about law enforcement people sharing their experiences with me. So my mother encouraged me to write another book, and I said, "Well, geez," I said, like cases like Exeter don't come around, a whole lot. Like that would be,
Mhm.
some people might only experience that once in their life. So I started thinking about what else I could write about, and I mean, my two passions are law enforcement and the paranormal. So I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to reach out to some coworkers and people I know that work in the law enforcement industry and ask them what experiences they had, and started collecting stories. I started with some sheriff friends of mine that worked at courthouses in Halifax, and they were telling me, a story of, janitor seeing a ghost up in the attic at the old Spring Garden courthouse. That whenever they do renovations, they find weird stuff stashed in the walls, like shoes and things like that. And I started doing some research, and back in the day, archaeologists have found that we used to hide things in the walls to keep evil spirits away, and shoes and things like that
Mhm.
were part of it. So really interesting. They also use some of the wood from beams of wood in the courthouse once the hanging device was finished with, and they didn't need the wood anymore. They would dismantle it and then use the wood as renovations in the courthouse. So it's got some residual energy attached to it from hanging people back in the day, and just really fascinating stories. Managed to collect, I think, around 50 stories from law enforcement that most of them hadn't been heard of before, and published that. And then I wrote another book a year later in 2021 called More Supernatural Encounters from Law Enforcement. What happened there is once the first book came out, I did a couple of podcasts, and the book did really well. A lot of people ended up purchasing it, and I was getting contacted by more law enforcement people with stories. So again, I would take up my tape recorder and interview them and collect the stories, and next thing I knew, I had another 50 stories, and
Mm.
I ended up writing two different books, all based on true accounts from law enforcement.
And that's an amazing thing. As I mentioned earlier, at least when I started, you might have talked about it with your zone partner or your squad partner, but you didn't talk about it openly because you were afraid that the shift commander, your lieutenant, would send you out for a psych exam or something. But now it's pretty common to talk about, and that's one reason why I like to get cops on this show, because we, as along with paramedics, for all kinds of first responders, ER docs, it's amazing some of the stories that they have that they've experienced, because we all deal in places where there's a lot of trauma, a lot of emotion, so to speak.
Yes, very
Yeah.
much so.
So you've obviously done some really interesting work here, talked to a lot of people, and you've collected a lot of evidence. I want to take a couple of minutes to find out what you do with this evidence. For example, the pictures you took down in Rhode Island.
Yeah, so
What?
some of them we do share on our social media, on our Facebook and Instagram pages, and we usually try and put an explanation out there. Like we'll talk
Mhm.
about what the person's looking at and what technology we've used, and
Mhm.
I always try and do some education in the paranormal. I always tell people like there's no piece of equipment that can actually detect a ghost or detect human consciousness and things like that. They're just tools that we use, like for example the FLIR, the thermal camera, though that's great. If you hear footsteps coming towards you and you
Mhm.
point it at the floor and you see footprints, that's really cool, and you can take a photo of it. Or maybe you'll hear the footprints, but you point the FLIR at it and you don't have any feet there on the floor. It doesn't mean that you didn't hear it. It just means that there's some disconnect between the spiritual world and our physical world,
Mhm.
where we're perceiving it and hearing it. And a lot of parapsychologists believe that ghosts project themselves using either extrasensory perception, or when you hear voices in your head, or somebody yell "Hey" or say "Mary" or whatever,
Mhm.
that's done through telepathy. So it would make sense that our current technology can't capture evidence of that.
I want to actually delve into that a little bit more in a couple of minutes. But what I want to ask you about now is when you gather evidence, do you collect it like we would evidence at a crime scene?
Yeah, so for my organization, I kind of implemented something like that, and I'm trying to get one of my researchers to develop. I call it an operations manual because that's what our policy was. We had an operations manual and an administrative manual. So for our operations manual, it'll have proper procedures. But now what we do is usually I'm involved in the investigation, whether remotely or physically on site, and we always have one person dedicated to collecting the final evidence. We might have a guy taking photos. We might have a guy working with the tape recorders, taking interviews. All that gets turned over to one guy, kind of like an exhibit custodian would, during a serious police file. That one person downloads all the data. That one person reviews all the data. If they find something, obviously, like that they think is, like a electronic voice phenomena or something like that, then, we'll share it with the investigators and get everyone's kind of input on it. But it just kind of narrows down from like having that evidence that you've captured, very sensitive evidence because you're dealing with the paranormal. It's the same as a crime scene. It's very important evidence for being passed around too many hands or left overnight in a car. And then you've got people saying, well, what did you do with that evidence once you caught it? Oh, you left it sit in your car for 2 weeks and before downloading it. Like, you know what I mean? It just looks really, really sloppy. And I think if you have those tighter kind of protocols, then when you do share that with the other experts in the field or the general public, that you can look yourself in the mirror and say, like, we put our best foot forward here and this is what we got.
Yeah. And I think, don't you agree that that's probably a great thing we've brought over from law enforcement, that chain of custody protocol or mindset, because you're leaving your car overnight. First thing a defense attorney is going to say, well, who tampered with that evidence while it sat unprotected? So so I understand exactly where you come from, but you've got your evidence now. How do you share it with, say, other investigators? You talked about your project that you were doing, I believe the Ghost Project Canada, where you're putting all this information out. Would you put this information on that site so other investigators can maybe see what you've gotten, and maybe there's some correlations between what they have and what you have? And
that's the goal, is to be able to upload that information. So let's say you go to a cemetery in Rhode Island and it's known, let's use Nellie Vaughn, for example. She was a girl that people accused of being a vampire. A lot of people see her spirit roaming around the cemetery. Let's say an investigative team goes there, captures an electronic voice phenomena with Nellie, and then another paranormal investigative team goes and gets what they think is an electronic voice phenomena. You'd be able to compare that one that we've caught up on the website with what they've caught and see, does it sound like the same voice? Is it the same kind of female voice? Or run it through some software and see if you can clean it up and compare it. There is really high-end software that the Society for Psychical Research uses, for example, where they were able to tell the difference between just knocking on a table and a poltergeist knock, because they have different acoustics when they run it through their audio software. So things like that are really important. And there's times like where I get pictures. Now, I will say, with pictures and videos now, especially within the last year, all the videos I'm seeing now on TikTok, a photograph is no longer worth 1,000 words. Nope. It's almost become now in the paranormal that seeing is believing, because I've seen some unreal videos lately on TikTok. It just artificial intelligence and all the apps and things like that are making our jobs as paranormal investigators extremely difficult.
Amen to that.
But back in the day, you could give the photo to somebody and they could analyze it for you digitally. But
got to go to a break, buddy. Got to cut you off here. Sorry about that. We'll get back to this in just a second, folks. Our fourth section's coming up. Stay with us. We got more to talk about. Be back after these messages. And we are back with Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, Elliott Van Dusen. Once again, this hour has gone really fast. I do want to take a moment to remind everybody to check out the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation's website at paranormalfbi.com and IndianRiverHauntings.com down here in Florida. You can check out what we're doing investigative-wise on our YouTube channel at Indian River Hauntings. Also want to remind you again, if you've got questions, thoughts, comments about the show, or things you just want to know about the paranormal, whether it be ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, whatever, get a hold of me at ghostguy@paranormalstakeout.org. There'll be a form there that you can fill out, and we will answer your questions at the beginning of each show. And I also want to mention, Elliott, you've got 3 books out there, and they are?
Yeah, so the first one's Evil in Exeter. And the second one is called Supernatural Encounters, True Paranormal Accounts from Law Enforcement. And then the third one is called More Supernatural Encounters from Law Enforcement. And they're available online, Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And if you're in Canada, Chapters Indigo.
Oh, now you've got some other things going on too. You want to share that with the audience?
Oh, yes. We got a big event coming up this year for Halifax. It's called the 2023 Halifax Paranormal Symposium. So us, Paranormal Phenomena Research and Investigation, are hosting it this year. Our goal is to turn it into an annual event, hopefully expand it to 2 days so that we can get double the experts in. We want to do different themes each year. So this year, the theme is real case files, investigations, research studies, or personal experiences that you've had. We've got 5 great guest speakers lined up. We've got Dr. Richard Gallagher, who teaches at Columbia University. He's a psychiatrist. We've got Chris Stiles. He's a UFO investigator. Kim Moser. She is a TV host and producer of East Links Haunted. We've got Dr. Daryl Walsh, parapsychologist. And our last guy is a cryptozoologist, and that's Lauren Coleman from Maine. So it's going to be an awesome event. It's at the Halifax Tower Hotel and Conference Center on Saturday, October 7th of this year, 2023. We're going to run from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I got your suggestion as well. So I'm looking into possibly doing something. If I can find something in the nearby in the local area, I think that'd be kind of cool.
Well, I've got some thoughts too. If you want to give me a holler later, we can chat about that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And how can folks find out about this event?
You can find it through our website. That also has obviously contact information, links to my books, research studies that have been done. We've got, a newsletter on there as well. And that's ppri.net. And it stands for Paranormal Phenomena Research Investigation.net.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. We've talked about a lot tonight, and there's so much more I'd like to go over, but I want to talk to you about something that is kind of dear to my heart. You've done some great work, and you're trying to share the stuff out there. But what are your thoughts on the creation of some standardization in the field? And what I mean by that is, and you hear people saying, well, I do it my way. Well, we have a homicide in Halifax, and we have a homicide here in Vero Beach. There's going to be changes. Obviously, Canadian law is different than law down here in Florida in a lot of ways, but we're still, based upon our training, going to investigate that homicide essentially the same way. We have protocols.
I would agree with that for sure.
What is your thoughts on creating something like that for our business? Not forcing people to investigate a certain way, but having some structure to it so that when you collect evidence in Halifax and I collect evidence down here in Florida, the evidence is collected in a standardized way. It's going to be much more logical and easy to compare it and possibly use it. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think that is very helpful, and that is, like I said, something that I want to get one of my researchers to kind of develop, like some protocol with us as well, so that it's in writing. And I've seen some training manuals. I think the MUFON training manuals, like close to 200 pages. A lot of people aren't going to sit there and read the 200 pages. It's like you said, you almost need something that's clear, concise, broken down. Or either that or hold some local training sessions for your investigators.
And that was the next thing. What do we need to do to create a training? And you know as well as I do in this field, a lot of times we don't share things. It's not like the cop world where we share information to solve a crime. A lot of folks in our business don't want to share ideas or thoughts or be willing to look at different ways of doing things.
That's true. To be
How-
honest, I think one of the great training spots, if you don't have anything on the go, local cemeteries would be a great spot to do your training. Most ghosts don't show up in the cemetery. There is the odd haunted cemetery, but I think it's great because you'll run into a lot of different things. You'll run into pareidolia, audio pareidolia, because you may be picking up nearby traffic that you might not be able to hear, but your recorder can hear. So you're gonna, go there, do some training, use the equipment, get everyone. I found when I was in homicide, I got pigeonholed into writing search warrants. That's what I was good at. Ended up going as high as writing wiretaps on homicides. I was the warrant guy. If you had a question about search warrants, like, it was me. But that's because I started writing them as soon as I joined the RCMP, because I was the junior guy, and that's what the RCMP did. Is the junior guy does all the crappy jobs. So I got stuck writing warrants, but I enjoyed it because you took a mess of a file, like you got this guy's report, this witness's statement, and you have to make a logical story for the judge or the justice of the peace to understand it in order enough to grant it so that you can seize a cell phone or search a house. And I think that those kind of training opportunities for people to go out to a public place and use your equipment and let everyone use it, let everyone get kind of trained in it, so that if something happens, if I'm not available and I'm the guy that always does the photographs or whatever, well, now somebody else can step in and do it.
But how do we get folks across the borders, across the different teams, doing things not exactly the same, but essentially the same, following a protocol? How do we do that?
Well, I do know that the Society for Psychical Research has two very good books out there. They're thin. One is blue, one is red. One is how to use equipment, and the other one is how to kind of conduct field investigations. And it's a good start. There might be stuff that you can kind of add to it and expand upon it, but those are definitely two good starter points. I own a copy each. And I also got my researcher that I want to kind of start doing the policy. I got him a copy as well so that he has it. I think that's a great start. And then, I mean, I agree with you. There's some people that don't want to work with other groups and don't want to participate, and I think that's fine if you don't want to. But I think if somebody can develop this and make it available to investigators, whether it's through Paranormal FBI or ppri.net, that you could download it and at least get a start. I don't think it hurts to take any sort of formal education or experience and build upon it.
And we can't give up. We can't just say, "Oh, nobody will do it." We've got to. If we're going to be successful, if we're ever going to solve this mystery, we must continue moving forward. And this kind of, in our last few minutes together, I want to get your thoughts on this also. What's a ghost? What is your
what is a ghost?
belief?
That's a complex answer, or a complex question. So I'm usually asked, do I believe in ghosts? And the answer is yes. The reason for that is, we know ghosts exist because people have been reporting them for hundreds of years. There's been laboratory experiments that have shown, for example, Dr. Michael Persinger with Laurentian University created what's called the God helmet. He took a snowmobile helmet, he modified it with electrodes. He would increase the magnetism when people were wearing it, and people would start to experience apparitions. They saw deceased loved ones, and some people even had religious figures appear to them. So we know that another one is carbon monoxide. There's been 2 cases of carbon monoxide poisoning where people have seen ghosts. One girl was getting a shower, and a ghost appeared in her shower, and it turned out her brand new hot water tank had been improperly installed, was giving off excessive amounts of carbon monoxide. So I do think that environmentally, sometimes it can cause people to see a ghost. I also have seen some really, really good cases where people have been able to corroborate things which I believe came from like a discarnate entity, somebody that used to live, and they were able to kind of walk either a medium or paranormal investigators through their life, which they were then able to go and corroborate.
And that's important,
So
that research to corroborate it.
yes, so it is a complicated answer because we do know that there's a few things that do cause people to see ghosts, but I think it's a mix. I think some are discarnate entities, some are as a result of the environment, and then of course,
Well,
there's
let me back up a little bit here. When you say things like the carbon monoxide, one I find particularly interesting, would you agree that there would be an argument that it was the carbon monoxide creating an issue with the brain that maybe saw this, or do you think the carbon monoxide actually caused the ghost to be seen?
No, I think in that case it would be the carbon monoxide
Okay.
has done something to the brain, which is then
Okay.
causing that person to hallucinate an apparition.
Mhm.
Same with the magnetism experiment by Dr. Persinger. These guys
Yes.
were in a secure scientific laboratory, and due to the magnetic field being increased, they were able to see apparitions. It's not that real apparitions had come into the laboratory. Now out in the field, that's a different story because you're dealing with homes, and even some homes can have issues that can cause people to to see apparitions. For example, like the carbon monoxide case, or another case was a home that was out in California that an architect decided to kind of do all kinds of different weird, funky things, and the house was basically the perfect creation for a haunted house. It was unlevel, so it was causing some inner ear balance people
Mhm.
for the homeowners, so they felt like off, or they felt like something was watching them in a certain room. There was another room that was always freezing cold, but they found a spring underneath it. So these are all things that when you go to a haunting investigation, you have to try and rule out. And you're not going to rule everything out. I mean, like, unless you completely flattened the house and tore down the drywall and all that stuff. But I mean, you can do the best job that you possibly can.
So what I'm hearing is we don't know
No, I mean, to this day, we still don't know exactly what a
actually what
ghost
it
is.
is.
I do
I agree.
know, that they exist. I feel confident enough to say that. But what are they?
I agree with you.
We still don't know.
I agree with you. And with that, my friend, we're just about out of time. We've got about 30 seconds. Once again, your website is
Yeah, it's ppri.net.
.net. So check him out for not only his books, but also the events coming up. Also check us out once again at paranormalfbi.com and IndianRiverHauntings.com. Check out our YouTube channel, Indian River Hauntings. Folks, great show tonight. I want to thank my guest, Elliott, for being with us tonight. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all next week. Stay safe, and we'll see you on the other side.